Welcome to the Jaco Report. I'm Charles Jaco. St. Louis's medium security jail, the Workhouse on Hall Street on the north side, is something Charles Dickens would have easily recognized. Filthy, dilapidated, freezing in the winter, broiling in the summer, insect-infested food. Over the past 5 years, 6 people housed there have died. Lawsuits demanding the workhouse be closed are pending. It is in many ways more of a poorhouse. Of the roughly 840 inmates there, only a handful have been convicted. Most are awaiting trial, and most of them are there because they just can't afford to make bail. Which brings us to a St. Louis federal judge's ruling. The city and its jail system had been sued in federal court for holding inmates an average of 10 months without any charges just because they didn't have bail money. Federal Judge Audrey Fleissig ruled last week that city judges have to hold hearings for everyone in jail and hold bail hearings for new arrests within 48 hours. Now, the city of St. Louis has come up with all sorts of reasons why it can't meet the judge's deadline, at least immediately. Meanwhile, the city jail and the Dickensian Workhouse are full of people who have not been convicted but haven't got money for bail. Joining us today to talk about all of that is Inez Bordeaux. She's a member leader with the Close the Workhouse campaign. She also spent a month in the workhouse. Also with us is Thomas Harvey. He's Justice Project Program Director and Senior Attorney with the Advancement Project's national offices. They're one of the groups that filed the federal bail lawsuit. Welcome to you both. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Thomas, I want to start with you real quickly. Where do we sit? Judge Fleissig made her ruling, which was pretty clear, and yet I don't see a lot of people being released either from the workhouse or the city jail. Since your organization was a party to this lawsuit, what's going on here? Is the city dragging its feet on this, or are they ignoring the order, or what?
They're not ignoring the order. The council who brought the case, which is Arch City Defenders Advancement Project, Civil Rights Corps, and ICAP out of Georgetown Law Center, we filed the lawsuit. Judge Fleissig ruled on our preliminary injunction. So this was a very high standard to meet. She ruled that many things that we said were correct, and she ordered Dale Glass, who's the city's jail commissioner, to be prevented from holding people in the jail who haven't had a hearing that meets certain constitutional standards. This has put increased pressure on the city judges to do basically what they should have been doing all along, which is providing people a hearing, giving them a chance to present evidence, requiring them to make an inquiry into a person's ability to pay, and then making a finding on the record stating their reasoning about why they would set a money bail or detain someone without bail.
My understanding, though, is the city is saying, whoa, wait a minute, this is just too much work. We don't have the manpower for it. This is going to take a while. We can't do this immediately, et cetera, et cetera.
So I think Judge Fleissig's order, she imagined that would only apply to a few people, maybe 100 people. I'm not sure exactly how many, but she never anticipated that the city of St. Louis had failed to provide these types of hearings to as high a number of people that they haven't provided them to, which by their estimates is something on the order of 700 people. So one of the things that they asked last Friday was that the judge put a pause on her order and give them some more time to comply. She did not enter the stay, which is a more formal matter. She just said, I'll modify this order, give you a little bit more time to come up with a plan. And we agreed with that so that they could have time to make sure they're doing the hearings right and to give notice to the family members of people who are in the jail, as well as their attorneys at the public defender's office, that these hearings are going to happen. So they're in the process of essentially trying to undo decades of not providing hearings that met constitutional standards over the course of, say, 10 days or so. And effectively what they said in court was, because we've been doing this wrong for so long, it's going to take a long time for us to figure out how to do it right.
Inez, talk to me about the Close the Workhouse campaign. I mean, specifically, this one facility, why focus on it?
We're focused on the workhouse because for the 150 years that it's existed, everyone has said the same thing for decades, for generations. The conditions are terrible. People are not being treated with basic human dignity and respect. There's no medical care. There's no mental health services. So when this campaign started, when Arch City Defenders decided to file that initial lawsuit about the conditions, they got together with some of the other local organizations in the area, Action STL, the Bail Project, more, and they decided to start this campaign. And the campaign is focused on closing the workhouse due to the poor conditions, but also ending cash bail, which is what allows the workhouse to exist in the city.
And that's the vast majority of people who are in the workhouse. Nobody's been convicted of, at least the charges they were arrested on, nobody's been convicted.
Over 90% of the people that are in the workhouse right now today are there for what's called pretrial detention. They haven't been convicted of anything. They've simply been accused of a crime, and because they're more likely to be Black and poor, they can't afford their bail, so the city leaves them there to languish until their court case.
Now, your story was one of the ones that won the Pulitzer Prize for Tony Messenger from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and I remember very specifically the column he did about you. You had an abusive husband, you were a nurse, you had to get away with the kids, you did, you found some gigs to keep body and soul together, and found out that the money you were bringing in was something like $57 a month, over the maximum limit for child care subsidies, but you were stuck. It's, you know, I either go back to my abusive husband, or I kind of ignore this $57 a month and keep going. So you kept going, got busted for a traffic ticket, warrant shows up, all kinds of things spin out of control, and you end up in the workhouse for about, what, 30 days?
I was in the workhouse for 30 days for a probation violation. I was on probation for overdrawing my unemployment benefits, and like you said, I did that in order to pay my $1,600 daycare bill a month for my 4 children. I was told by the state when I applied for benefits that I made $57 too much. So I was in a very difficult position. I could go back to my abusive situation that I had just escaped from, or I could do something bad for a good reason. And so I did that, and I ended up on probation. I was on my way out somewhere one day and I got pulled over. There was a felony warrant for my arrest for a probation violation, and it landed me in the workhouse.
Describe to me, I mean, look, you're a mom, a working mom, you're a nurse, for heaven's sake, you know, professional woman, and all of a sudden, I mean, you hadn't had any run-ins with the law except maybe a couple of traffic tickets.
That was it. The only thing I had ever been in trouble for was traffic tickets. A licensed professional in the state, for the most part, a very law-abiding citizen.
And you find yourself in this hellhole all of a sudden. Describe that to me. What are the conditions like inside that workhouse?
All the bad things that you've heard about the workhouse are absolutely 100% true.
That the guards are either brutal or negligent, that there are insects in the food, that the place is dilapidated, it's dangerous.
I've seen women pick roaches out of their food. I have seen the black mold growing across the walls. I have seen the rat infestation. I have seen the roach infestation. I have been there when 50 women in a pod can't take showers because the sewers keep backing up, knowing that the toilets don't flush, not having enough toilet paper or sanitary napkins for the women that they're holding in the workhouse. I know Jimmy Edwards has said time and time again that the workhouse is old, but the conditions are not inhumane, and we take good care of the people that are there, and I'm telling you that that is not true. I am not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know.
What was as a middle-class mom who just found herself, because of an abusive husband and circumstances, in this position, what's the one thing of those 30 days that sticks with you the most?
That the city is willing to throw people away. Our city is resource poor. We spend so much of our budget on policing and jails, 67% of our budget, while only 0.03% of the St. Louis City budget goes to things like health and human services, like providing services that I could have used, which would have prevented me from ending up in the workhouse, like affordable childcare, affordable housing, education programs, job programs. We spend 0.03% on that. That was the number one thing that I learned.
Did you find that, pardon me, a lot of the other people who were in there, I mean, most of them, if not all of them, were there just because they couldn't make bail, but that the circumstances that led them there in the first place, the charges, was just sort of this confluence of
Crimes of
circumstances,
poverty.
just like you?
Crimes of poverty. That's the women that I got to know while I was in the workhouse. They were there for things like low-level drug crimes, low-level weed possession, crimes of poverty, stealing Pampers out of Walmart because they couldn't afford them, bouncing a written check because they're not being paid a living wage on their job.
So it's not
Things
like these are
that.
rapists, murderers, robbers, killers.
90% of the people that are in the workhouse, like I said, are there on pretrial detention, and they're there for low-level crimes, low-level things, crimes of poverty, things that we shouldn't be locking people up for anyway. We should just be providing the resources that so that people don't have to resort to the things that they have to resort to survive.
A question for both of you. Why do you think the workhouse is still in existence if, number one, the conditions there are appalling, number two, it's physically dangerous, and number three, most of the people who are held there are being held essentially for a financial crime, that is, you're poor, you don't have money to make bail. Why is this thing still open? Is it just a matter of bureaucratic inertia, or is something else going on here? I mean,
Systemic racism.
Systemic racism?
Systemic racism. This city for 200 years has built this city has built its economy off the backs of poor people and off of people of color. The city is profiting off of locking poor, mostly Black, mostly people of color up in the workhouse. I say all the time that the workhouse is a monument to systemic racism and white supremacy in the city, and every single person walking the city today should be embarrassed that it's been allowed to stand for this long.
From a legal point of view, Thomas, what can be done, is being done, should be done to close the workhouse? Obviously, there's a campaign to raise public awareness and demand that the thing be closed, but are there any legal remedies that, well, you're violating the 14th Amendment at the very least here? I mean, what legal remedies are there in court to go in and say this thing needs to be closed immediately?
So as you mentioned, I just want to emphasize that joining the Close the Workhouse campaign and getting involved is the primary way to do it, because your question to Inez about why it still exists is really about our culture and our society, and our laws are just a reflection of that. So the legal actions that we've taken are simply in support of this Close the Workhouse campaign. The litigation we brought is to attack the issue of cash bail, because as Inez mentioned, more than 90% of the people there are held pretrial because they can't make a cash payment to secure their freedom. So the other attack has been on the conditions in the jail. Regardless of whether or not someone has been convicted or they're pre-trial, there are certain standards that jails and prisons have to meet with respect to the people that they hold. This includes humane conditions, it includes providing adequate medical care, it includes providing adequate food, and these things are not being done in across the board in not only the St. Louis jails, but across our country. And those attacks are limited, and this is why I'm interested in the campaign and support the campaign. Is you cannot get to the resolution we're looking for through the legal system alone. People need to call their alder people, they need to go talk to Mayor Cruson, they need to tell the leaders who are in power in this city that they don't want to spend $16 million on a facility that now holds maybe 350 people, that has a capacity for 1,100 people, when you've got another facility that you could put right now as an interim step everyone in, and then close that facility, keep the budget line, that 16 million, to invest in exactly the kind of services that Inez mentioned that would make communities actually be safe and free. And that's what I think the goals of the campaign are, and that's the litigation is a fairly narrow tool that can be used to support attacking that system. It cannot on its own accomplish these goals.
Now, as you both noted, this is part of a much larger issue, which is the issue of cash bail. That is, if you got the cash, you can make bail. You know, if you've got upper middle class means, you can pay a bail of $500, $5,000, $50,000, whatever the figure is. You can probably, within a day or two, come up with that money somehow and get out. For people who are stuck in there, a lot of them are on bail amounts that to somebody in the middle class might not seem that huge, but to them are gigantic. Where do we stand in our area with trying to overturn the cash bail system? Because, and if I recall my pre-law courses correctly, bail is supposed to be only a guarantee that the individual will show up in court, that it's illegal to be punitive in any way. So where do we stand trying to adjudicate the cash bail system where it's as it should be? That is, we're going to charge you the amount only we think that's sufficient for you to show up in court, and we're going to take your circumstances into account.
That is exactly where we are, and your knowledge from your pre-law class supersedes many judges in this country's understanding of how.
But I didn't end up going to law school, so it wasn't a total waste.
But it just goes to show you, yes. But it just goes to show you that the way we actually use cash bail in this country is contrary to the legal limits on how to use cash bail. So as you said, the folks who have a bail set are folks who have not been convicted of anything. Therefore, bail can't be punishment because they're not being punished for anything because they haven't been convicted of anything. This is simply to guarantee their return to court, and in many states, the judges can do an analysis of whether or not there's a threat.
So it's
to
supposed to be
public
enough
safety.
money so it might pinch a little, so you don't want to blow off the court date and lose the money.
Yeah, but the fact
But it can't be something that's going to destroy your life.
Lots of cities have shown, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., New York, have shown, even our own bail project has shown, that when you release people without bail, they show back up to court. The Bail Project proves it every day. Over 90% of the people that they have bailed out show up to court with things as simple as a reminder, hey, don't forget you have court tomorrow, and transportation. So we're seeing all over the country that ending cash bail can work. It can work, and it does work.
How well is the campaign, do you guys think, going, not only here but elsewhere, to, number one, bring this to the public's attention, but number two, actually reform the system?
I feel like the movement to end wealth-based pretrial detention is going very well. It's gotten a ton of attention across the country. I think that the ongoing challenge is going to be, even when these modifications are made, holding judges and courts accountable. Because as we know right now, the Constitution already lays out what the courts are supposed to do, and the judges just aren't doing that. The state Missouri Supreme Court can promulgate new rules about what the judges are supposed to do, and they just don't do it.
Is this just, I mean, obviously part of it may be systemic racism, but is part of it just bureaucratic inertia? In other words, this is the way we've always done it, and we're just going to continue doing it?
Yeah, I think for many people, this is the way they've always done it. They don't understand that it's wrong, or they're ignoring the fact that it's wrong, because the results that a racist system like wealth-based pretrial detention produces are results that our society wants. That's the purpose of holding people in jail, is to protect certain powerful interests against people who don't have a lot. And in this country, that's almost all people of color on the other end of this. So there is an incompetence, there is intransigence, and then this is how that system was designed to work the entire time.
Inez, final question for you. On one hand, your guys' campaign to shut the workhouse has gained a fair amount of attention. People are talking about it. There's some traction here. On the other hand, this entire system screwed your life up to a fare thee well. It messed things up for you completely and totally. As far as you're concerned, in terms of there being a just adjudication of this, is it glass half full or is it glass half empty?
I will never be able to get back what was taken from me. So justice for me means spending the rest of my life tearing down the systems that have put me in this position. Luckily for me, after everything that I went through, I was able to recover my life to a certain extent. I am doing well. The kids are well. My nursing license was reinstated. Like, everything is fine. So I'm getting back some of the things that I lost, but that's because I had something to fall back on. Many people don't have something to fall back on. So, like I said, justice just means keep fighting the fight to tear down the systems so that the next person, the next single mother who is doing what she was told to do by leaving and trying to make a new life isn't put in a situation that I was put in. No one should have to feel that hopelessness that I felt in the workhouse. The way I felt thrown away, like I did not matter. My life did not matter. So I fight every day to make sure that that happens. That's justice.
Our thanks to both of you. Thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate your time. Our thanks to Thomas Harvey and Inez Bordeaux, and our thanks to you for joining us. We hope to see you right back here next week for another edition of the Jaco Report. Thanks for being with us.